Hi guys and welcome! In today's video, I'm going to review and try for the first time Acryla Gouache. And oh my god guys, I'm so excited to share today's video with you, and I was so excited to try this gouache. It's different from normal gouache because the most known gouache is water-based paint, while Acryla Gouache is acrylic based. But I will get into details about Acryla Gouache later in the video. I got a 18 color set from Holbein, 20 mm per tube, and this gouache brand is made in Japan. And it came into these nice boxes to keep organized the paint tubes. I've heard a lot about this gouache, and knowing that there is a medium between gouache and acrylic, I had to try it out myself. So the first thing I did was to do color swatches and try this paint. I was surprised how smooth the paint came out. I was so afraid I was going to waste paint, so I carefully squeezed the paint out of the tubes. On this paper, you see me squeeze the paint. I did some color mixing to see how the paint behaved when adding water and when mixing the colors together. It was my first time trying this paint, so I had no idea about its quality and what to expect from this paint. While on another paper, I made a color chart for myself for seeing the colors of the tubes, and I painted 3 different gradations. From top, without using water, to the bottom, adding more water. If it was normal acrylic, I wouldn't have added water, but since this is apparently to be a mix between gouache and acrylic, I was curious to see how this paint behaved when adding water. And yeah, it's similar to gouache. It dries in this opaque finish, which is the beauty of gouache. Just from these color swatches, I could already tell that this gouache is high quality paint. I squeezed out a small amount of paint, but the consistency of the paint was very rich. I was surprised how pigmented and how bright these colors are. It was very enjoyable to handle this paint on paper. I've seen from other videos I watched on YouTube about Acryla Gouache that once this paint dries, you can't lift up the paint underneath anymore. I kinda already expected since it's acrylic based, but I tested myself and as you can see, I couldn't lift up the paint, which makes Acryla Gouache a great medium to work with several layers of paint. But at the same time, you have to be careful with the amount of paint you use on your palette, because you can't reactivate the paint once it's dry. While I was making the color chart, I noticed it took about a good 50 minutes before the paint started to dry. Of course, if you add more paint or water, it will dry more slowly. So to get to know better this gouache, I painted different drawings and I tested this paint in different ways with different papers. Honestly, I'm not too satisfied with these paintings, aside from the third one, not because of the quality's paint, but for the design itself. It was my first time trying this gouache, so I wasn't expecting to be good at the first try. The one I'm going to show you the painting process is my third attempt, which is the most successful, to me, has the best way to work with this paint with the right paper. Just quickly, for the first attempt, I used a 200 GSM paper, while on the others I used a 300 GSM paper. As you can see, the paper bended completely on the edges, even though I stick the paper on my table so that it would have remained flat while I was painting. I think it's because I used water with the paint and the paper was too light. So I think it's best to use over 250 GSM for Acryla Gouache. While on the fourth attempt, here I used a lot of water. but it bended less because I used a 300 GSM paper, so the paper have held up the paint better. But still, the paper had more difficulty to return flat. While I was painting, I was holding back on using too much paint. I was so afraid to waste paint because I can't easily get hold of Acryla Gouache, which is sad, so I have to buy this paint online because I've never seen in any of the local and online art shops where I usually buy my art supplies that they sell Acryla Gouache. That's also a reason why I never knew about this gouache type before. It's just harder for me to get hold of this paint. My main question before purchasing this paint, it was if with Acryla Gouache I would have been able to get precise details and fine lines, because I really struggle on getting those with normal acrylic paint. So the answer is yes, I was able to achieve fine details with Acryla Gouache, which I'm so happy about that, but it's not as easy and precise as gouache. What I also like about acrylic paint, so same with Acryla Gouache, is that you can work from dark to light, which for me it's more comfortable to work in that way. With Acryla Gouache, you can work with many layers of paint without lifting off the paint underneath, and the coverage is great. For the way I work, I like to have control of the paint, which you can have with acrylic and gouache. That's why I'm enjoying working with Acryla Gouache.